It has been more than 3 weeks since the Justice Department missed the deadline to release all of the files related to the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, as required by law. Not a suggestion, by law. This week, the two House members who led the push to unseal those documents, Republican Thomas Massie and Democrat Ro Khanna, asked a federal judge to step in and appoint a special master to ensure all the documents are released. The request comes after the DOJ revealed earlier in the week that it had only publicly posted about 12,000 documents, but still have more than 2 million to review, meaning they have released less than 1% of the files so far. I don't know if you're good at math. That's basically nothing. And all the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee are demanding the Republican Oversight Chairman James Comer hold a hearing and force Attorney General Pam Bondi to testify about the DOJ's actions or inactions in releasing the Epstein files. Quote, the department's actions and public statements relating to the Epstein files have been conspicuously inconsistent, evasive, deficient, and misleading, heightening suspicions that DOJ is covering up details of Epstein's crimes in fealty to the White House. Joining us now is the top Democrat on that committee, House Oversight Committee, Congressman Robert Garcia. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us on set this morning. You know, there's the question of the special master, but there's also the question, I've talked to some legal experts on this, that you guys, the Congress could just sue the administration, right? You could take the DOJ to court and say to a judge, they are breaking the law. Make them follow the law. And instead of a special master, which, you know, seems unlikely, but have like an actual lawsuit. Why, would Republicans be on board with that? And why hasn't that happened yet?
So it hasn't happened yet because we'd actually have to have a majority of the House on board for the lawsuit. And so a lawsuit from the House actually has to be first really pushed by the majority or a majority of members. And so we would need support from Republicans to actually get that lawsuit.
Well, all of them but one signed.
Right. Still, that was an action that they were forced to do. And so the legal action from the House is absolutely on the table, but so is legal action from outside groups. So there are a bunch of groups right now that are looking at the best way of approaching this. Getting a federal judge involved, which Congressman Connor from, of course, our committee is doing, is a good step and approach. And we've been planning kind of what this rollout on the legal front has been for a while. Right now, the fact that 99% of the Epstein files have not been released to the public from the DOJ is crazy. Yeah. Especially when you think about what's already been, of course, released. I mean, there's been some significant information that's come out to the public. And so this is incredible. I mean, the American public should be just pissed that the DOJ is defying the will of not just Congress, but of the public. The public wants the files released.
Yeah.
And you did have, though, a small victory this week, and along with the Oversight Committee, in succeeding to issue more subpoenas. That obviously requires the cooperation of James Comer, who has to sign off on those subpoenas. They're going to go to the longtime friend and client of Jeffrey Epstein, Les Wexner. He's the former CEO of Victoria's Secret, and Epstein managed his personal finances. There is some really excellent reporting about how inextricably entwined their fortunes were. I'm wondering what you hope to get from that, and also if you can make a little news here, who else you're planning on subpoenaing. I mean, there's a host of other names. Alan Dershowitz. There's Jean-Luc Brunel. There's a number of former personal assistants.
There's Donald Trump.
I imagine
Bill
that
Clinton.
Lower profile names might be amenable to Comer signing on to subpoenas for them as well.
Absolutely. Look, we have a long list of subpoenas, a long list of folks that we want to actually, of course, talk to.
Who are the next people on those lists?
Yeah, well, let me first get to Les Wexner. This is really important. So Les Wexner is critical. I mean, this is a billionaire benefactor. A few people were involved with the finances more than him. And he, of course, led Victoria's Secret, was very involved, essentially paid for much of Epstein's fortune. And we also did a subpoena in that same exact meeting with both Epstein's former lawyer and accountant, the two heads of the Epstein estate. So those three individuals, the reason we subpoenaed them is because the survivors have mentioned their names to us more than any other names. In fact, after the Wexner subpoena vote, I got multiple messages from survivors saying thank you. And remember, Wexner was listed as someone that actually, by Virginia Giuffre, where abuse was happening at his home, and another of the survivors actually mentioned that he actually also did the abuse. And so, look, we want to find out what happened there. As far as people in the future,
did prosecutors ever identify him as a co-conspirator?
So we that is one of the problems, is we don't know because we don't have the access to the files. And we don't know who made the decision to not go after either whether it's Mr. Wexner or other folks. As far as folks in the future, I want Jeffrey Epstein's pilot in front of the committee. I want Jeffrey Epstein's assistants in front of the committee. And so there's a lot of folks that we are pushing. We have been pushing Comer, particularly on Wexner and both Daniel and Richard, who are the two heads of the Epstein estate. We've been pushing to get those names. We finally got them, quite frankly, because Representative Luna on the other side worked with me. We cut a deal. We moved it forward, and we got some Republicans to vote with us.
On this issue of holding DOJ accountable for not following the law, here's Thomas Massie, Congressman Massie, on Tuesday, where he claims that Trump officials could face criminal prosecution over the Epstein files. Watch this.
Typically, like with contempt, you might refer that to the DOJ, and then the DOJ never prosecutes itself. And then the problem goes away at the end of the Congress because it's contempt because they're not in compliance with the congressional subpoena, which expires at the end of Congress. This law does not expire at the end of Congress, and so they've got a real problem. The contempt that the Congress refers, they could be in jeopardy of that even after this Congress.
Okay, Congressman Garcia, I wanted to play that because in a rational world, in a real world where you have officials playing by the rules, they should be afraid. But we're talking about the Trump administration, where they have shown basically from the moment he took the oath of office that he and they do not give a damn about what the law says, what norms are. And this is the same man who went on the record with the New York Times to say, in terms of foreign policy, morality is his own morality, and his own mind is what's going to guide him. So why should Congressman Massie, why should you think that a contempt charge on any official within the Trump administration would even be taken seriously, let alone investigated or acted upon?
I mean, I think there's two things that are important. I mean, one is because Donald Trump's not going to be the president forever, and Republicans aren't going to control the House forever, and we're going to ensure that anyone that is causing harm to the American public, lying, cheating, breaking the Constitution, redacting information illegally, all of that has got to be, we've got to hold folks accountable for that. The second piece is because there are actually good civil servants at the DOJ and at the FBI that have worked on these files, that know what's in them. There are whistleblowers within the Department of Justice. There is a bubble that continues to grow of people within our agencies that are frustrated and tired of all of this being hidden and not coming out. And so there's going to be a lot of people, I believe, if the files aren't released and everything's not put on the table, you are going to have, I believe, people within the DOJ begin to call that out. And I think that Pam Bondi knows this, which is why they are working overtime and trying to cover their tracks right now. We are talking to folks right now. I have heard some of the items that are possibly in the DOJ's possession. They got to release all the files.
Congressman, I'm going to get in trouble with our producers because we are out of time, but I want to get you on another topic. Let's go to E6, guys. The House voted to subpoena a journalist over a report on Delta Force Commander. This was led by the House committee member Anna Paulina Luna, who accused a journalist, Seth Harp, of leaking classified intel after he posted a photograph of a person he identified as the commander of the elite unit responsible for the Venezuela operation. In that reporting that came out Thursday, it said that you supported that. I'm curious, and I guess help explain to me and explain to the American people why it shouldn't be concerning that Congress or any administration would subpoena a reporter for reporting on what seems like something the American people and the world should hear.
Look, I think that's a good question. Look, essentially, Republicans control the majority on the Oversight Committee. So they were going to this subpoena, which Representative Luna brought forward, was going to happen with our votes or without our votes. They had the votes. They presented the subpoena. They were going to vote for it. Democrats made the decision, if they're going to subpoena this reporter, which was not our choice, that we're going to attach these Epstein subpoenas to that vote, and that's how we got the Epstein subpoenas. So we wouldn't have gotten the Epstein subpoenas without attaching them to her initial vote. We were going to lose that vote regardless.
But do you worry about the precedent that it might set to the American people?
I mean, look, it's not a subpoena that we agree with. Either that subpoena was going to go through with no Epstein subpoenas, or we were going to attach the Epstein subpoenas to them.